Hey guys, so that's correct. The thumbnail is not clickbait. I have sold all my guitar amps. I no longer own any guitar amps. Taking it one step further, I don't actually own any individual pedals as well. I don't own an individual delay, reverb, and chorus and stuff like that. Instead, I rely just on simply on amp modelers and multi-effects processors. The point of this video is just to share my personal opinion on why I did this. You can do whatever you want. The point of this video is for me to give my side of why I did this, and then you can watch it and go, that makes sense, or that doesn't apply to me. It's up to you what you want to do with this information. So in this video, I'm going to go over the gear that I currently use and why I've decided to go with these ones individually. This is a music tech channel, so don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more videos like this in the future. Okay, so first of all, what do I use for live gigs and what do I use for recording if I don't have any amps anymore or pedals? So for live, my main guitar is the GTRS S800 by MOOER, and using that guitar, this is my pedal board. This is a Bluetooth pedal board that syncs up to the guitar. So I did a whole video review about that guitar. It's pretty amazing. You program all the amps, cabs, pedals, reverbs, effects, and all that stuff in an app, and then it saves it into the guitar, and then that just comes out the 1/4 inch out, and you run that, direct. There is a button on the guitar that you can push in order to change through patches, and this also is a way to get a little bit more, so you get like a tap tempo, you get a tuner, and you get multiple banks using this foot switch that syncs up over Bluetooth. So that seems to be my main guitar right now. For my original music, I use the HX Stomp by Line 6. Using the USB out, I connect it to my computer running Ableton, and the HELIX will send audio into Ableton to be recorded directly, and Ableton will send MIDI to it in order to send MIDI commands. But being able to use USB for audio recording and receiving MIDI is just insanely valuable. And then I also have the Line 6 HELIX, the full one. To be honest, that one I probably use the least now, which is kind of sad. It used to be my main rig. I used to use it all the time. But with the portability of this or my HX Stomp, most of the time I usually gig with those. So for the studio, my plugins that I use is, first of all, I use HELIX Native, obviously. That's the software version of the HELIX. The plugins by Neural DSP, I think, are some of the absolute best plugins out there. The Pliny one, I think, is basically the tone that I'm going for. That plugin is amazing. I love that one. That's my go-to one. There's also a Diesel amp plugin that I really like. I also have Guitar Rig that has a bunch of different options. And then for metal and heavy rock tones, there's one called the 1111, which I did review on my channel. That is the heaviest amp plugin that I've used and has this really cool feature for automatic like stereo panning. So it gives you like a double tracked guitar without actually double tracking. It's amazing. It sounds so good. So I wanted to tell you just briefly what my rigs are, but these are all the reasons why I decided to go this route. All right, reason number one is that the quality of these direct rigs has gotten so good over the last couple of years. Just think back like 10 years, how much they've improved since then. The quality is there, and you can get 95% of the tone that you need out of these things. I'm going to keep saying the 95% thing because to me, in my opinion, I think it gets me what I'm looking for. I don't really sit down A, B, compare everything. To me, if it sounds good, I'm going to use it. That's always been my tone philosophy. To me, it's 100% of what I need. To other people, they might be like, oh, it's 95%. But the point of it is that tone is not the only thing you think about when you're doing music. But if I get 90%, even 90% of what I need in a tone, and then I get other bonus features on top of it, that's 100% worth it for me. Obviously, if these things did not sound good, I wouldn't use it. It doesn't matter how portable or how programmable it is. If it sounds bad, I'm not going to use it. But because it sounds very good and very usable, all these other things are a bonus, even if I lose 10% of my tone, which again, I personally don't believe we do. So what are some of those added benefits from these rigs? First of all, load-in is so much easier. I know this is an obvious one. The final one that I sold was a Mesa combo amp that was really great. It was heavy. It's a lot more difficult to bring. This fits in my guitar case, or the HX Stomp is in a little tiny, tiny case that I have, but the load-in is so much easier. Something that I thought about while I was putting this video together, I don't know about you guys, I watch quite a bit of rig rundowns. I'm sure we all do. We're obsessed kind of like, oh, what gear is out there and stuff like that. One of the ones that I watched was the one for Imagine Dragons. I know people like hate Imagine Dragons. I don't care either way. That's not at all what this video is about. Even if I don't listen to a band, I want to see what they're using. He has a really big setup, multiple amps, multiple cabs. And his guitar tech even said in the interview, he said, we could have done this with a Kemper, but no, he wants his full setup. And I was kind of like, the guy from Imagine Dragons wants a full multiple amp setup. What is the reasoning for that? I used to be a guitar teacher, and every time I'd have a student come in and say, oh, I want to learn this Imagine Dragons song, I'd be like, well, these are the chords that the electronic music is playing, and occasionally there's this like one riff that you can hear that the guitar is actually doing, but I'm like, there's not really a whole lot of guitar in this music. Again, not bashing the music, I'm just saying that the guitar isn't as prominent as like, a Motley Crue song. Why would the guy from Imagine Dragons need this massive setup? You wanna know why? Because he can afford it. He has a guitar tech. He has people to set this up for him. Of course, he can have it sound exactly as he wants it to. I guarantee if he had to do load in and setup and sound check and haul his amps around for as many shows as they play, if he had to do that, I guarantee he'd be like, can I do this with a Kemper? Is that possible? And that's where I'm at. I would love to have a roadie set up all my stuff for me. One of my musician friends that I play with, he has the best quote. He says, I'll play the show for free. It's all the other stuff that you have to pay me for. Completely true. The show is the best part, but getting all set up and load in and stuff like that is usually a pain. You know, I'm blessed to be able to be a full-time musician. I play, you know, over 100 plus shows a year, but if I'm loading my gear, I'm going direct. One trip, load in, and I'm done. Sorry, drummers, I didn't mean to rub that in. Another reason is that if there is tone loss, which again, I personally don't believe that there is, but your opinion might vary. If there is, I guarantee you the audience doesn't care. I guarantee you 99.9% of the audience isn't going to care that you're using a fractal. They're just not. I'm sure, you know, at some shows, there's that one guy in the back of the room who's crossing his arms saying, this guy's not using Mugami cables and tube amps. This band sucks. I guarantee that guy's out there somewhere, but that's not, you know, who my core audience that I'm trying to appease anyways. I mean, even look at bands like Periphery and Animals as Leaders. A good chunk of their fan base are musicians, myself included. I like both of those bands. Everyone's there to have a good time. No one's complaining that they're using fractals and Kempers and stuff like that. The audience is not going to care. So another reason why I've gone direct is I'm on in-ear monitors at basically every band that I play with. I know not everybody is on in-ear monitors, so that is a little bit different. I'm going to address that here in a second. But for me, you know, if I need more guitar in my ears, I just turn it up on the app on my phone. I do have a video explaining how to set up an in-ear monitor rig if you're interested in that. But I know not everyone can afford that, and not everyone's able to do that. There's two things. One, you don't have to have a wireless solution. You can actually get a wired one for very cheap. Behringer P2 or the Donner one, I've reviewed both of them, but they're battery-powered headphone amplifiers. You just come out of your direct rig. Each of them have, you know, multiple outputs or like a headphone out or something like that. Plug into that, get a pair of $20 to $50 in-ear monitors, earbuds, which again, I've also reviewed. I'll link to both of those down below. For like $50 or something like that, you can always be able to hear yourself. You don't have to have the full mix, but just be able to hear yourself and your guitar. You can do that this way. I've also reviewed some cheap wireless ones that are $100, which are definitely worth using if you're going to use it for this, just to hear your guitar. Because one of the common things I hear from people who only use amps is they say, well, if the sound guy sucks, you know, and my wedge mix is awful, at least I can hear my amp from behind me. I get that, but two things is, first of all, a bad sound guy is a bad sound guy no matter what. If you have a bad sound guy, he's going to screw up your direct rig or your amp or miking up your cab. Many things can go wrong with a bad sound guy. But the other thing is you have this option to get that feed directly to your ears. So I don't think that's really an excuse anymore. And then there's a lot more clarity if you have it directly into your ears instead of having to rely on the amp. And again, I'll link to all of those, the videos for my reviews, as well as purchase links down below if you're interested in doing that. Another reason is I have multiple amps and multiple effects all under my fingertips. If you have just one amp, sure, it'll sound good and you'll have a good clean and distorted tone, but that's pretty much it. You get that amp and that is it. You know, with Guitar Rig or Helix Native or all these other ones, you get multiple styles of amps. And again, I'm going to go back to the 90-95% rule. You're going to get 90 to 95% of the tone with multiple amps. You know, I have hundreds of different amp modelers that I can use to go for the tone that I want to when I'm recording. There's no way I'd be able to afford all of those individual amps. So it actually saves me money. And that's actually my next point, is it actually saves you money in the long run. Because not only do you get multiple amps, you get multiple effects in there as well. You get multiple options for delays, reverbs, modulations, chorus, and stuff like that. So when I bought the Helix, I did have to sell my Strymon Timeline. It was the most expensive pedal that I owned, and I needed the money to buy the Helix. Don't get me wrong, I love the Strymon Timeline. I absolutely love the sound of that pedal. It is the best delay pedal out there in my opinion. But the Helix also had a very large number of delays. Maybe I don't get the exact ambient delay that I need out of my Timeline, but again, I get 90-95% of it in the Helix as an all-in-one unit. Plus, in the Helix, I get all those delays, all those reverbs, all those modulations, all those distortions, all those amps. The Timeline is just the delay. And that pedal was like, you know, $450. It saves you money in the long run to have all of these effects with, again, 90-95% of the tone in one unit. Which leads me to my next point. When you have that many individual pedals, that is just more options of things that can go wrong. The simplicity of guitar goes into direct rig goes to front of house is just incredibly valuable. There is so much less to hook up that could go wrong with this type of a setup. How many times have you seen someone with like a massive pedal board with like 15 boutique pedals and something has gone wrong and they have to unplug and figure out which patch cable is not working somewhere, something's not working. They're frantically pushing all the buttons and trying to unplug cables and see what's going on. Granted, obviously your guitar or your pedal can screw up. That's obviously always a possibility. The guitar, the wireless, and the pedal, the direct rig itself. 3 things to check if something's going wrong. And that's why I always have a backup, the MOOER P1. So that's my backup rig in case if something goes wrong. Seriously, check out my videos on that GTRS and the MOOER P1. It's the most portable setup ever. So the MOOER P1 you can use with any guitar, and the GTRS one is the guitar itself. So it's up to you on which one you want. I'll link to both of those down below. This system is so cool and it's really helped me out a lot. There's just so much less to go wrong with these types of setups. Another reason I like to do this is a lot of these pedals, almost all of them, are able to be controlled by MIDI. So with my original music and my previous bands, we would play to a click track and to backing tracks. When the song needed to go into the chorus, it turned on the distortion. When it needed to go into a solo, it would turn on my boost and a delay and stuff like that. I never had to pedal dance. In fact, with my older bands and with my current original music, I don't even have my pedal underneath me. It is off to the side. It is not even under my feet, and I can focus on the performance instead of having to worry about pedal dancing. Not to mention that my original music currently, it's all live looping in Ableton. Going direct for looping is so much easier than having to mic something in order to loop into Ableton. So it definitely makes the most sense for me. And the GTRS actually doesn't accept MIDI. Although the GTRS is actually really nice because I can push that button on the guitar in order to switch to like a lead boost. So instead of, if I'm doing a solo, instead of having to run back to my pedal board to hit the boost and then run up to the front of the stage, I can start walking up to the front of the stage and then hit my boost when I need to, and then switch back when I'm done soloing. But being able to control stuff with MIDI, it just makes it so much easier. You can do this. There's stuff like the gig rig and stuff like that where you can have your certain pedals turn on and stuff like that. That is always a possibility with individual pedals. But again, that's a lot of pedals and a lot of cables. Just like I mentioned earlier, that's a lot of stuff that can go wrong. For me, one unit, MIDI receive, that just makes it so much easier. And like I said, my direct rig is usually off the stage and I don't have to worry about it. Or even if I'm using this, it saves on stage space. It saves on stage space from either not having to have a big amp or having a massive pedal board. Again, the HX Stomp or the GTRS Bluetooth pedal board are so tiny, it takes up barely any stage space. I remember I did a fill-in gig for a band. Their other guitar player has a massive pedal board, and then they have, singers and dancers and stuff like that, and there's choreography and stuff like that. And one of the things they said that, they just run into problems with is how big the pedal board is, that it can kind of get in the way. So when I showed up and I was like, well, this is my pedal board, they were just like, this is amazing. I don't have to worry at all about tripping over that or anything. There's another gig that we did, I remember, and we played outside, up in the mountains, Colorado. I mean, it's gonna snow. That's Colorado for you, especially in the mountains. So it was covered, but sure enough, it started to snow, and it never snows or rains down. Always sideways, always. So it started snowing onto the stage. The other guitar player, he was trying to pack up his pedals and like trying to get the cover over the top to keep the snow from hitting it. And me, I literally kicked this thing over to the side, to the back of the stage. And my bandmates were cracking up is that I'm literally able to kick my pedal to get rid of it and just keep playing, and I focused on with just using the buttons. That's pretty wild. So again, less stage space, easier to pick up if something is going wrong. Outdoor shows drive me nuts because it's always wind, rain, or snow. And so that definitely helps me out a lot. Also, I have control over the volume at shows. So some places you play, they want control over the volume of the music. So if you're playing, a bigger venue or a bar, or something like that, most of the time they know, okay, it's going to be a rock show type thing. They want it to be a little bit louder. But, if you play smaller places like restaurants or something like that, or if you're doing a patio gig, or if you're doing like a private party, so private parties, for the most part, usually pay more. Sometimes, they're going to be like, oh, can you keep the volume down a little bit? And when we're able to do that with these direct rigs, they're very happy that there's not these full stack Marshalls just blasting all night. Being able to have the option of either cranking it up loud or turning it down quiet is a plus, because there's literally no stage sound, which is something that a lot of sound guys prefer, actually. A lot of sound guys have said that they love having, direct rigs so that they can control the volume of the mix without having to compete with the sound on the stage. It's like, okay, if you need it louder, you can turn it louder. If you need it down, you can also turn it down. And that leads me to my last point for travel. Obviously, this is an obvious one. I've been very fortunate to be able to travel to a lot of pretty cool places, Cancun, Dominican, Bahamas, the Middle East, stuff like that. These fly rigs have been incredibly helpful, especially for dealing with the stress of traveling with your instrument and dealing with like TSA and stuff like that. I do have a video going over that if you are interested in how to travel and tricks that I've learned about traveling with your music gear. So check that out if you are going to travel with your gear. But man, the portability of these just makes it so much easier to fly with. All right, so those are my reasons. So I know that the video is getting a little bit longer than I wanted it to, but I did just want to end on this. Every guitar player that I know who was anti-direct rig, who had a good tone, eventually ended up going to direct rigs. I remember when I used to teach guitar, I went and saw another teacher's show, and I was like, oh my God, your tone is so good, crystal clear. He had a double amp setup, double cab setup. It sounded so good. And eventually he got a Fractal about a year later. Another guy, he had like this $5,000 setup, this amazing Mesa setup. Just strumming a G chord just sounded so good. It really sounded great. So that's one of the things that people think is that I'm like anti-amp. No, it's just I think that the pros outweigh the cons with these direct rigs. But his amp sounded so good. Then he started playing every weekend. And you eventually just see the amp just shrink down a little bit. So instead of having a half stack, he switched down to a combo. After that, I've never seen this. I need to look up what this thing was. It was an amp, but like you could switch out like cartridges of it. I have no idea what this thing was, but he would say, this isn't like a modeler because you're actually putting in part of the amp in there. I didn't understand what that thing was. Maybe if you know, leave a comment down below. You see where I'm going with it. It's almost just like, well, I'm not going to use a modeler, but I'm going to use this other thing that makes it, you know, kind of like a modeler, but it's not a modeler. And eventually he ended up getting a modeler, but he used it with a big speaker. And then eventually he even had it with like a speaker, just a tiny speaker. And it was like, dude, you guys are even on in-ears. Just go direct, man. Like it almost was to the point where it's like, I'm not going to be just direct. I need at least something on the stage. It's like, well, now you're almost just doing it just to kind of prove a point. If it makes your life easier, just go direct. There is something about, no. It has to be amps. It has to be amps. It has to be amps. It's just like, man, I just think that the pros outweigh the cons on these direct rigs. So that's my opinion. Take it for what it's worth. You can make your own decisions and feel free to add to the conversation with the comments down below. If you're using direct rigs, let me know. If you're not using direct rigs and you still prefer using amps, let me know in the comments down below. Let's go with 95 since that's the theme of the video today. 95% of people are going to be civil about it and they understand that, you know, it's their opinions and everyone's going to have a different way of doing things as musicians. But to the 5% that are for some reason upset about this, you probably aren't even watching this and you're probably just commenting because you saw the thumbnail. This is the method that I have chosen and these are the reasons why. So take it or leave it. That's up to you. So I hope this helped you guys out. Thank you for watching all the way till the end. Do me a favor, just hit the thumbs up button. It does a ton to help out the YouTube algorithm and recommend my channel to more people. So I would appreciate it. Check out some of the videos that I mentioned. You really should check out that GTRS guitar. That thing is really, really cool. I love that thing. And again, check out some of my videos about affordable in-ear monitors, especially using direct rigs. Using in-ear monitors is definitely a huge plus in my opinion. And there's actually quite a few options out there for very affordable prices. So check out some of those videos by clicking the links on your screen now. Don't forget to follow me on my social media pages at Scott Yule Music on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thank you guys again for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.